Hello everyone, welcome back to Mr. English Talks. Today I want to tell you a story about a single mistake that turned my life upside down and unexpectedly put everything back together in a better way. This is not a dramatic Hollywood story. It is a human story of fear, failure, learning, and gradual change. I will walk you through the moment I made the mistake, the immediate consequences, the slow recovery, and the lessons that still guide me. The language will be simple and clear so every English learner can follow, and the tone will be honest, motivational, and practical, like a coach who has failed, learned, and now sits with you to share what matters. I remember the day clearly. It felt ordinary at first. A normal morning, familiar routine, and the same small confidence that comes from doing things you have done many times. The mistake was not dramatic at the moment. It was a decision made from convenience and a little blind optimism. I chose a shortcut, a quick solution that promised an immediate benefit and asked almost nothing in return. Shortcuts have a friendly voice. They whisper that effort can be saved, that the present discomfort can be deferred, and that tomorrow will solve itself. I followed that voice, and the result was a long, unexpected lesson. At first, the consequences seemed small. A missed deadline, a tense conversation with a colleague, a small financial slip. The kind of problems we tell ourselves are manageable. But consequences are like waves, small pushes at first, then wider ripples. That tiny decision shook other things that were already fragile. Plans that relied on steady progress lost rhythm. Trust with some people, trust I had taken for granted, needed repair. I felt foolish, embarrassed, and afraid of judgment. More than anything, I felt the quiet, heavy weight of disappointment in myself. The feeling of disappointment is strange and useful. It holds two messages. 1, you did something that matters enough to notice. 2, you now have information you didn't have before. That information is the starting point for change. I sat with the disappointment and tried not to run from it. I wrote down what happened without excuses. Writing that raw timeline, what I did, why I did it, what I felt, changed the moment from a shameful secret into a clear problem I could act on. The next days were messy. I called the people affected, apologized, and offered a real plan to fix what I could. Apology without action feels hollow. Real apologies include small, specific steps that show responsibility. I learned to be precise. I said exactly what I would do and when. This rebuilt trust slowly, because people saw steadiness rather than promises. Repair takes time. The repair process was not glamorous, but it was effective. It taught me that the speed of repair matters more than the loudness of regret. There is a quiet, powerful lesson inside mistakes. They expose hidden beliefs. My mistake revealed that I had been avoiding difficult things. Real planning, honest conversations, and the slow work of skill building. I preferred quick fixes. Once I saw this pattern, I could choose differently. Awareness opened a door. The mistake became not only a consequence, but a teacher that showed where I needed to grow. One of the first practical things I changed was my decision-making process. I created a simple question I now ask any time a shortcut feels tempting. What will this cost me if it fails? I learned to estimate real costs, not just financial, but relational and emotional. This question slowed me down and made me think twice. Often the shortcut stopped sounding friendly when I saw the true cost. If the cost was small and manageable, fine. If it threatened something important, I chose the longer, harder path. Another change was breaking large tasks into visible micro-commitments. Before the mistake, I promised outcomes but did not show the small steps publicly. After the mistake, I started sharing progress, small daily steps, short updates, and visible checkpoints. This practice did two things. First, it made me accountable to myself and to others. Second, small wins restored confidence more reliably than occasional big pushes. Confidence rebuilds slowly when it is supported by real evidence. Patience became a new habit. I used to think progress had to be fast. The mistake taught me that steady, calm action is stronger than frantic recovery. I measured progress not by dramatic leaps but by consistent days showing up. Slowly, the momentum returned. My work improved because the foundation became stronger. Clearer plans, sane time allocation, and real feedback channels. I also learned to request help earlier. Pride and fear made me hide the problem at first. Once I asked for help, I got perspective and faster solutions. Asking for help is not weakness, it is smart resource use. I started to build a trusted group of people, a few friends and colleagues, where I could share honest challenges and get pragmatic advice. This network shortened the path from mistake to recovery. A core lesson was emotional honesty. I learned to name the feeling instead of letting it simmer under a professional face. Saying, "I feel guilty and I want to fix this," cleared space for practical conversations. When we use plain language to describe feelings and next steps, people respond more kindly and more constructively. Vulnerability in action invites collaboration. Mistakes also changed my relationship with fear. Before, fear often caused me to choose shortcuts. After the mistake, I realized fear had two faces, one that paralyzed me and one that pushed me to act prematurely to avoid discomfort. I learned to pause and ask which fear was steering me. If fear wanted me to escape responsibility, I chose the opposite. I leaned into accountability. If fear signaled real danger, I protected myself. This clearer reading of fear made decisions wiser. Let me share some specific, repeatable steps I used to convert this mistake into long-term growth. First, I made a damage list. Exactly what went wrong, who was affected, and what practical fixes were needed. Second, I prioritized those fixes and started with the smallest actions that would rebuild trust quickly. Third, I set a public timeline showing milestones and small deliverables. Fourth, I built a daily habit tracker focused on the behaviors that mattered: planning, communication, and small daily progress. Fifth, I asked for feedback weekly and adjusted. These steps were simple, but they forced real follow-through and demonstrated change. There were also quieter internal practices that helped. I developed a short journaling habit each morning. Write 3 things I will do that day that move the repair forward. At night I wrote 1 line, what I learned and 1 small success. This loop created clarity and allowed me to measure tiny improvements. Over months, these small notes formed a visible trail of growth I could look back on when I felt discouraged. The mistake also reoriented my values. I learned to privilege long-term reputation over immediate convenience. Reputation is not an abstract trophy. It is the sum of small choices. Each honest conversation, each delivered promise, and each consistent day built a reputation that felt solid. I started to ask myself, will this choice align with the person I want to be 5 years from now? This future self question slowed impulsive shortcuts and forced alignment between action and identity. Another powerful shift came from reframing failure. Instead of seeing the mistake as a mark of shame, I began to see it as a data point in a larger experiment. This perspective change made mistakes less threatening and more informative. When you treat failure as feedback, you can run more small experiments and learn faster. The courage to fail increases with a system that collects, analyzes, and applies lessons. My life became more experimental, not reckless. The mistake also taught me how to coach others more honestly. When I mentor people now, I do not give simple pep talks. I tell them the concrete recovery steps I used, make a damage list, act fast on small repairs, show progress, and keep one habit that improves competence each day. People respond to stories of repair more than to stories of effortless success. Repair is real and relatable. There were financial consequences too. I had to reallocate money to fix things and rebuild some resources I had taken for granted. This forced tighter budgeting and better financial discipline. I learned to build small buffers, an emergency fund, small reserves for problems, and a line item for repair or learning costs. These buffers remove the panic that pushes you toward short-term fixes. They allow you to choose deliberate action when something goes wrong. One of the most human parts of the recovery was regaining confidence in front of others. Confidence does not return by telling yourself a new story. It returns by doing consistent, competent work. I started small, completed visible tasks, and let the results speak. Over time, the nervousness faded, and the sense of competence rebuilt. People noticed not because I proclaimed it, but because my behavior changed. Quiet competence is the strongest comeback. I want to share 3 practical questions I now ask before making a decision that might be a shortcut. First question: what is the worst realistic outcome and can I live with it? If I cannot live with it, I avoid the shortcut. Second question: who else will be affected and how hard will it be to repair? If repair is costly to others, I avoid the shortcut. Third question: what small step can I take now that reduces risk and increases clarity? These questions slow the moment, let reason in, and prevent avoidable mistakes. Let me tell you about the surprising gifts that came from this hard lesson. The first gift was humility. I became less impressed with myself and more curious about learning. The second gift was deeper relationships. People who stayed through the repair process built stronger trust bonds with me because they had seen vulnerability and responsibility. The third gift was skill improvement. The daily habits I adopted as part of repair made me better at planning, communicating, and executing. The fourth gift was mental resilience. I learned that recovery is possible and that setbacks do not define the whole story. There is also a ripple effect. When you repair honestly, others learn how to do the same. Friends and colleagues told me that my openness helped them fix their own mistakes. Repair can spread healthier norms, accountability, visible progress, and kindness in response to failure. This social ripple mattered to me because it multiplied the positive outcome beyond my personal recovery. I know mistakes feel crushing when you are in the middle of them. If you are in that place now, here is a short, practical plan to start repair immediately. First, stop hiding. Tell one trusted person exactly what happened. Second, make a clear damage list and choose 3 immediate fixes you can do in the next 72 hours. Third, communicate one honest plan to affected people with realistic timelines. Fourth, create a small daily habit that addresses the root cause, planning better, seeking help, or practicing a skill. Fifth, track progress and ask for feedback weekly. This plan is not magic, but it is a steady path forward. Finally, there is a life lesson I want to leave you with. Mistakes are not the end of your story unless you let them be. They are interruptions, sometimes painful, sometimes long. But inside interruptions live information, and information is power. Use it. Build a small plan, show up daily, and let repair be a sign that you value your relationships and your future more than your present comfort. When you do that, the mistake becomes a turning point. Close your eyes for a moment and imagine your life 5 years from now if you handle mistakes this way. You will be steadier, more trusted, and quietly stronger. Now imagine if you avoid, repair, and hide mistakes. Regrets grow, opportunities narrow, and fear becomes a louder voice. Which path will you choose? Choose the path of steady repair, small wins, and honest growth. If you liked this video, don't forget to subscribe this video.